After witnessing the scene outside, Seo went back to Director Kim and woke him up. Director Kim was extremely exhausted and told Manager Seo that he couldn't keep up with everything going on anymore. Sitting beside Seo, he told Director Kim he felt the same way. It would be nice if this were all simply a dream. Director Kim couldn't believe that it was just the two of them remaining, but he thought he should feel relieved that they hadn't been taken by those monsters. Seo simply looked at the confused Director Kim and didn't say a thing, because even he wasn't sure about this. He may have regressed, but in his former life, he had been nothing more than a powerless herb gatherer. Seo then told Director Kim that they couldn't remain in this alleyway forever. So why didn't they head out from here? Director Kim said, "All right," and both of them walked out of the alleyway. But as they stepped out, all the people of that place began staring at them while speaking in some unfamiliar language. Hearing those voices, Director Kim became very confused. He asked Seo, "What are they saying? Sounds like Chinese. Why is everyone whispering while looking at us?" Seo told Director Kim that some of the people were saying the clothes they were both wearing seemed funny. Hearing that, Director Kim was stunned. Seo smiled and assured him not to worry because he understood a bit of Chinese. Director Kim wanted to ask something, but noticing Seo's wounded back, he stayed quiet and said, "That's great." Seo said that, but in truth he had lied to Director Kim. The language those people were using was not Chinese. Other than the fact that they shared the same characters, it sounded completely unfamiliar. In his previous life, Seo had endured the mockery of beggars for 2 months just to grasp the basics of the language. But now there was no reason for that. Seo pulled out the herbs he had gathered earlier and asked Director Kim if they should get some fresh clothes. Hearing that, Director Kim was puzzled and asked how, since he felt the people in this place wouldn't accept their currency. Seo didn't explain anything to Director Kim and simply led him to the city's medicine hall. The medicine hall's owner was astonished to see the ginseng and asked Seo if he was truly letting them purchase such valuable herbs. Seo acted confident and told the owner that those yellow bamboo roots were at least 800 years old. The owner said, "Of course," and added that the roots should be valued at around 15 silver ingots. Hearing 15 silver ingots, even Seo became uneasy, as he had never possessed that much money in his past life. But he kept his composure and urged the shopkeeper to hurry and take the money. The shopkeeper agreed and instantly handed over the silver to Seo. After leaving, Seo and Director Kim first bought some clothes and then purchased a house in the city. Director Kim was surprised to see the house they would be living in. Seo said yes and told Director Kim that starting today, he would teach him the language of this world. Hearing that, Director Kim became very happy and thanked Manager Seo. Seo made it appear as if everything was fine. But after bribing a few people for identity plaques and purchasing the land and home, they were left with only 1 silver ingot. He assumed it was because they were in the capital and that's why everything cost so much. While Seo was examining the money, Director Kim noticed Seo's back. Even though he was wearing fresh clothes, due to the injuries on his back, his new outfit had turned red. Realizing how much Seo had done for him, Director Kim suggested to Seo that since they were now in a completely new place, why didn't he just call him by his name? Surprised to hear that, Seo told Director Kim that he was okay with that. Director Kim smiled and thanked him while addressing him by his full name, Seo Yoon-hyun. Later that night, after settling inside the house, Seo explained to Director Kim that the reason he had been able to get all that silver was because he had sold those herbs. Pointing toward the 2 remaining ginseng roots lying in front of him, Seo told Director Kim that they wouldn't have any steady income once the herbs ran out, so they needed to come up with a way to generate money. Hearing that, Director Kim glanced at the ginseng and pondered. Then suddenly, he came up with an idea and suggested to Seo that they use the silver they'd get from selling the remaining herbs to start a business. It was a solid plan. Seo understood that with the money they could earn from this, along with Director Kim's experience from being a director in a mid-sized company, they should be able to sustain a living. But that didn't seem enough. Seo figured that since he had regressed, why not aim higher? He knew Director Kim was a martial arts prodigy, who, after reading some third-rate martial arts manuals sold on the streets, became a martial master in just a few months. Once he picked up more advanced techniques, he became one of the most formidable martial artists in the Yongho. But what if he were to study high-level martial arts right from the beginning? Seo might be able to accelerate the rise of the greatest swordsman in the Yungho by at least 30 years. Thinking of all that, Seo smiled and made up his mind. He would benefit as much as possible while working for him. He informed Director Kim that this was Murim, a realm of martial arts. This immediately caught Director Kim's attention. Seo told Director Kim that no one could predict when the gangs of the Yungho might target them if they launched a business, so shouldn't they at least learn basic self-defense? Director Kim's face lit up upon hearing the words martial arts, but he also knew they didn't teach outsiders their martial arts. So he asked Seo how they would manage to learn. Seeing his enthusiasm, Seo smiled, because as a well-known Murim novel nerd, he already knew Director Kim would be curious. He explained to Director Kim that in this city, there are 7 renowned sections. Among them, the demon-slaying sect, self-binding temple, suppressing birdhouse, and the 7 mysteries sect belong to the orthodox side of the Yungho. Meanwhile, the Wolf Fang Gang, the Dark Knight Association, and the Dragon Fighting Stronghold are seen as unorthodox. The people refer to them as the 4 stars and the 3 demons. The demon-slaying sect primarily trains in sword and blade techniques. The self-binding temple is a Buddhist sect, while the suppressing birdhouse resembles the house sect. They focus on intelligence gathering. The 7 mysteries sect has an ancient legacy and teaches a variety of martial arts. On the other hand, not much is widely known about the 3 demons. It's said they specialize in stealth skills and sorcery, and are involved in many unlawful activities. After finishing his explanation, Seo asked Director Kim which sect appealed to him most. Without a moment's hesitation, Director Kim picked the demon-slaying sect, adding that a martial artist should wield a sword, and a man ought to master blade techniques. Hearing that decision, Seo thought it was only fitting for the man once hailed as the greatest swordsman in his previous life. But Director Kim was puzzled and asked Seo how he knew all of this. Seo chuckled and told Director Kim that he had overheard some martial artists talking earlier. Then, 3 months later, Seo and Director Kim headed to the demon-slaying sect. But the guards blocked them, asking what their purpose was. Seo introduced Director Kim as his elder brother and told the guards that they had heard about the fame of the demon-slaying sect and had come hoping to learn martial arts. The guard of the demon-slaying sect was a strict, muscular man. He glanced at Seo and Director Kim's clothing and assumed they appeared to have a reasonable amount of money. But he told Director Kim that training in martial arts at his age would be challenging. Seo laughed and handed over a silver coin to the guard, asking if he could at least allow them to speak with someone of higher authority, adding that even basic self-defense training would suffice. Like that, by bribing the guard, Seo and Director Kim managed to enter the demon-slaying sect. Inside, they met one of the sect's elders. The elder asked if they were interested in learning martial arts merely for self-defense. Seo responded that they wished to learn the best techniques available, offering a box filled with silver nuggets. Upon seeing all those silver nuggets, the elder accepted, saying he supposed they could be allowed to join as external disciples. But after taking the silver, he added that no special treatment was given to those who entered through donations, and furthermore, they would only accept one of them. Hearing that, Seo was stunned because all that silver was worth just 1 yellow bamboo root, and that was all they were willing to offer. Surprised, Director Kim tried to question the elder if they were being scammed, but before he could say anything further, Seo accepted the elder's terms and thanked him, adding that his brother would be the one receiving the training. Upon hearing that, Director Kim was truly shocked. Then, as they were leaving, the elder asked Director Kim to come out later to the area where all the external disciples gathered. As they walked away, Director Kim asked Seo what was the point if only he would be learning martial arts. He said he might have picked a different faction had he known they'd be that costly. Seo turned back with a grin and told Director Kim not to worry about it, saying it's not like he had ever excelled at sports anyway. He told Director Kim he'd just start a business with the leftover money and support him, so he should simply focus on mastering martial arts. Director Kim was taken aback by that. He couldn't believe how much Seo was giving up for his sake. He told Seo that he would do his best, but Director Kim still had doubts because of his age and wasn't sure if he could truly accomplish much. Seo encouraged him to believe in himself, that he was capable. Director Kim thanked Seo and went to train with the outer disciples. Then, 7 months later, during a competition held inside the sect, all the elders of the demon-slaying sect were both shocked and furious at the sight before them. In just 7 months, Director Kim had defeated every one of their disciples. The elders were enraged, demanding to know how some outsider from nowhere had managed to overcome all their prized disciples in such a short time. The demon-slaying sect was thrown into chaos. To master a martial art means to grasp the true essence that the martial art carries and to physically align oneself with it. A third-rate fighter who understands the essence of a martial art can rise to second-rate if they absorb it into their personal comprehension. To move beyond that, one requires more than double the depth of understanding as before, alongside equal time and effort. Yet sometimes, individuals blessed with talent seem to mock normal levels of understanding and leap through multiple stages at once. The demon-slaying sect is filled with such gifted warriors, the renowned sect of Seo City. But an outsider has arrived to challenge the prime disciples of that noble sect. In just 7 months, Director Kim became a top-tier warrior who had fully mastered the absolute dragon saber technique of the demon-slaying sect. The Grand Elder was enraged upon witnessing Director Kim, for he knew it was unthinkable to reach first-rate with just 6 months of training. First-rate level is a rank achievable only through the combined dedication of many elite martial artists. Furthermore, Director Kim was an outsider learning within their sect. To many, it felt like their traditions had bowed to a single man. The Grand Elder instantly commanded the sect guards to seize Director Kim. And so, he was captured and confined in a house watched by hundreds of guards. But now, even Seo was taken. He understood that since an outsider had acquired skills worthy of a sect elder within 7 months, the entire sect was thrown into chaos. In such an absurd scenario, Director Kim was locked in his quarters, suspected of being a spy from a rival sect. Still, Seo couldn't grasp why he too was seen as suspicious, especially when he didn't even practice martial arts. Seo questioned Director Kim, who was refining his sword moves, if he felt concerned. Director Kim chuckled and asked Seo what exactly he should be afraid of. Seo brought up the fact that they were labeling him as a spy. In martial arts stories, they often destroy a person's core or even sever their internal flow. Director Kim agreed that it was true, but added that somehow, he felt like he was nearing another wall, and if he overcame it, he was confident he'd rise to the next level. Seo was stunned upon hearing this and asked what kind of monster Director Kim truly was. It hadn't even been long since he had reached the first-rate level, and now he was already close to advancing again. Seo understood that the martial peak came after reaching first-rate. It was the stage where most great sect leaders or high elders resided. In Yenghua, they were referred to as absolute masters, and only about 1,000 of them existed across the entire nation. The martial world never speaks of any level beyond that. So, martial peak is regarded as the ultimate realm achievable through martial arts alone. Seo realized his assumptions were off. At this speed, the world's strongest swordsman would appear 40 years earlier, not just 30. 7 days passed, and Seo along with Director Kim were still being held captive. But even during that time, Director Kim wasn't idle. He kept training and meditating without rest. After 7 days, all the chi he accumulated transformed into 3 blooming energy lotus flowers. Director Kim inhaled their essence directly through his mouth. Seo was stunned to witness the lotuses, for he recognized them as chi flowers that manifested only to masters at the martial peak, and 3 of them had gathered at once. After fully drawing in that chi energy, Director Kim stood and told Seo that he had broken through the barrier, and he no longer feared the leader of the demon-slaying sect. Hearing those words, Seo let out a laugh and admitted that Director Kim's talent far surpassed anything he had imagined. Director Kim smiled and told Seo that even he was amazed by himself. He had never imagined he possessed such talent. He wondered if this was the reason he had always enjoyed martial arts stories as a kid. Just then, an elder from the demon-slaying sect entered with several guards and declared, "Here arrives Jim Yong-hun along with his ally." The elder unfolded a scroll and announced they had orders from the sect leader to destroy the chi core of the so-called spy who had stolen their sect's martial arts. Hearing this, Director Kim glared at the elder in fury, while Seo panicked and tried to speak up. "We're not spies. We were only—" But before Seo could finish, the elder struck him in the face and shouted at him to stay quiet, claiming they'd heard them speaking in a coded language. He commanded the guards to hold them down. But before they could move, Director Kim drew his sword and, in a flash, sliced off the elder's hand. The elder was stunned by the sudden move and lost grip of his own weapon. Director Kim aimed his sword at the elder and declared that this was the first sect he had ever joined, and he was no spy. However, a guard from behind didn't listen and lunged to strike Director Kim. Before his blade could reach, Director Kim dashed with blinding speed and severed the hands of every guard in the chamber. Watching that unfold, all the guards turned and began fleeing. Understanding that he was a martial artist at the peak level, they rushed off to notify the sect leader at once. Seeing them flee, Director Kim turned to Seo and said he planned to visit other sects for training, then asked what Seo intended to do. Seo instantly responded that he would go with Director Kim and proposed they head to the famed unorthodox sect, the Dragon Fighting Stronghold. Upon hearing this, Director Kim chuckled and told Seo to go on ahead, assuring him they would meet there, but not before he dealt with the pursuit of the sect leader and elders. A few hours later, high up in the Dragon Fighting Stronghold's rugged mountain terrain, Director Kim stood atop a cliff with his sword and asked Seo why he was so late. Seo, panting hard after the long climb, laughed and said it was simply because Director Kim was too fast. While conversing with Director Kim, Seo's gaze was fixed on the blood-soaked sword in Kim's hand. Looking at it, Seo recalled how Director Kim used to scold him for being violent not too long ago. But even if it was for survival, this world had turned them into something different. Seo silently wished they could return, not to this brutal martial realm, but back to an ordinary life on Earth. If given the chance to regress, Seo only wanted to return to Earth. With all those thoughts, Seo continued climbing the mountain, following behind Director Kim. He understood there was no turning back now. Since they were here, they had to do what was necessary. After the betrayal from the demon-slaying sect, Director Kim seized control of the Dragon Fighting Stronghold. 2 years later, he traveled across all regions of Yenghua, defeating sect after sect. By the 3rd year, he had successfully shattered the emblems of every last sect. He became renowned as the greatest martial artist beneath the heavens and used his legendary status to unify the sects under the martial alliance. 7 years passed, and by then, Director Kim and Seo shared a bond as close as brothers, ignoring the difference in age. Director Kim developed a martial art uniquely tailored for Seo and handed him the manual, saying, "This is the Severing Mountain Sword." Seo accepted the book and began reading it intently. Director Kim explained that he gave it that name with the hope Seo would carry on its will, a will powerful enough to slice through mountains. He believed that if Seo mastered the Severing Mountain Sword, he could eventually reach martial peak. As Seo read the manual, he was taken aback. Aside from what Director Kim had already told him, the Dragon Vein Chi method crafted alongside it was true first-rate martial arts. Unlike any second- or third-rate techniques, it was an immensely powerful method, and Seo immediately began training in it. But there was one major issue. Even after trying, Seo failed to learn it and would collapse instantly during practice sessions with Director Kim. Witnessing that, Director Kim told Seo bluntly that he truly lacked talent. Indeed, Seo's potential was incredibly poor. Despite receiving personal guidance and a martial art custom-made by the greatest martial artist alive, Seo barely reached the third-rate level, and that too after a full year of effort. A year later, Seo admitted that it couldn't be helped. He told Director Kim that perhaps he had some talent in medicine. After all, everyone has strengths in different areas. Then one day, a full decade later, Seo witnessed something truly astonishing. He saw Director Kim meditating, with 5 radiant chi flower orbs forming above his head. Seo was in awe, for this was a realm he had only read about in ancient tales, the convergence of 5 energies to the origin. All at once, Director Kim's entire body began to emit powerful internal chi. His joints and bones cracked loudly, and the surrounding energy shifted drastically as his white hair of age reverted to jet black. It was a divine spectacle. Director Kim's body undergoing complete transformation, radiating such energy that even standing nearby became unbearable. Once everything settled, Seo looked forward and was stunned by what he saw. Director Kim, now reborn as a young man, chuckled and asked Seo what had left him so astonished. His voice, his features, and his physique had completely changed into that of a young man. "This is known as skeletal restructuring," he said. Stunned, Seo called Director Kim brother, joking that he now looked even younger than him. Director Kim laughed and asked if he truly appeared that way. He said he felt overflowing with vitality, as though nothing was beyond his reach. Seo remarked that the world would be stunned once they saw his complete transformation. While putting on his robe, Director Kim replied, "Certainly." He walked up to Seo and said it was about time to pass down the leadership of the Murim Alliance. But Seo knew that there wasn't anyone who had gained Director Kim's recognition. Director Kim agreed and said the Murim Alliance leader, by its nature, needed to possess a strong martial foundation, but not one individual truly grasped the essence of martial arts. Seo chuckled and told Kim that was because he wasn't normal. Where else would you find a genius like him? Director Kim glanced out the window at the disciples' training and said that regardless, someone had to be found. Seo insisted once more that there simply weren't any worthy candidates. Then, 25 years later, inside a building at the heart of the Murim Alliance, Seo was calmly writing with a brush. 35 years had gone by since he had begun his second life in Dongsung. His hair had turned silver gray, as he was now well into his mid-60s. These days, he often wondered where the youthful Director Kim was and what he might be doing now. A year after undergoing his transformation, Director Kim had passed down the role of Murim Alliance leader to the next generation and stepped away. Seo had wanted to retire with him at that time, but to stabilize the disorderly Murim Alliance, he remained as its chief strategist for many more years. Director Kim had told Seo that he wished to roam the martial world and explore the entire Yen Kingdom. Maybe because of that, he didn't even show up at Seo's retirement ceremony. Old Seo stepped out of his room for a breath of fresh air. Looking around his home, he felt a deep sense of loneliness. He had purchased the house with enthusiasm using his retirement funds, but now it felt too large for one man to live in. That was the real issue. While pondering those thoughts, he suddenly heard rustling sounds from the bushes. Becoming cautious, he moved closer to investigate, only to be shocked at the sight of Director Kim standing there, wearing tattered clothes. Seo asked Director Kim what was with his ragged appearance and why he hadn't even attended the retirement ceremony. "Where have you been all this time?" Director Kim laughed faintly and collapsed to the ground. Seeing his condition, Seo quickly asked if something had gone wrong. Looking up at the sky, Director Kim told Seo that he had truly believed he was blessed with martial prowess. Sitting beside him, Director Kim asked, "Isn't that right? If I'm not a genius, then what else could I be?" He continued, "I am without a doubt a martial arts prodigy. Perhaps in this entire Yen Kingdom, or among folks like me, no one rivals my martial talent." Hearing Director Kim refer to himself as an ordinary person, Seo was confused and asked how he could possibly be ordinary. "Who under heaven doesn't know you're the number one in the world?" But before Seo could finish speaking, Director Kim interrupted with a heavy voice and said he had battled those cultivators. Did Seo remember them? Those monsters from 35 years ago who had kidnapped their comrades and soared through the skies? Seo, who had lived through that era twice, instantly remembered and was stunned to realize they were cultivators. He knew such beings rarely revealed themselves openly, instead operating from the shadows, embedded deep within the Yen imperial family and influencing the kingdom itself. After the Murim Alliance was founded and began gaining influence within the Yen Kingdom, those cultivator factions started interfering seriously. Director Kim was displeased by this, but to oppose them meant going against the kingdom itself. To shield the Murim Alliance, they had no option but to comply. For that reason, Director Kim relinquished his leadership role in the Murim Alliance. As a mere mortal, he traveled across the Yen Kingdom, seeking them out alone to stand against them. Director Kim explained to Seo that finding cultivators was extremely difficult. Even when he did find one and tried to confront them, they dismissed him outright, saying he wasn't worth their time. Then they would vanish using illusion techniques or flying skills, leaving no chance to counter. But 5 years earlier, he finally managed to fight a cultivator. Upon hearing this, Seo's eyes lit up, and he eagerly asked if he had won the battle. Director Kim replied calmly that yes, he had. Upon hearing that, Seo chuckled and told Director Kim that if he had done such a thing during his time as Murim Alliance leader, he would have dragged him by the collar. But while shaking hands, Director Kim said he had fought desperately against a cultivator who had reached the chi condensation realm, and he barely managed to graze his fingertip. Seo was left stunned. Director Kim then told him the cultivator had said, "If you can even touch my body, I'll count that as your win." So technically, he did win. But Director Kim still felt disappointed. Seo then asked if that cultivator from the chi condensation realm was one of the 10 great masters from the cultivation world or someone of similar standing. Director Kim shook his head and explained that the cultivator had said his level was just the second lowest in the cultivation hierarchy. In martial terms, he was merely second-rate. Seo stood there in disbelief. He couldn't wrap his head around what he was hearing and asked what kind of nonsense this was. In both his current and past lives, Seo had known cultivators to be terrifyingly powerful. But Yonghun's martial arts clearly defied limits. He was someone who could walk on air using skywalking, and slice through ancient steel and buildings like they were soft tofu. Yet, a genius like him could only manage to scratch the fingertip of someone near the bottom of the cultivation ladder? With visible disappointment, Director Kim said, "I was like a frog trapped in a well. We can never stand up to cultivators. They're like unstoppable natural disasters." Hearing this, Seo began sweating. Director Kim's words truly frightened him. But then, Director Kim pulled a hand out of his pocket and told Seo that today he had managed to cut the wrist of that cultivator. Hearing this, Seo brightened up and asked whether that meant his martial skills had surpassed the cultivators. But Director Kim shook his head and told Seo that the cultivator had simply used a talisman, and his hand regenerated. With that, Director Kim stood up and told Seo that perhaps his martial journey had come to an end. Stunned, Seo quickly asked what he meant by that. Director Kim told Seo that he had come to bid farewell. With a chuckle, he said, "That person said he admired my determination and would accept me into his cultivation sect. I'll probably begin as the youngest disciple." Hearing that, Seo asked if becoming a cultivator meant gaining immortality. And wasn't it said that only those born with spiritual roots could cultivate? Director Kim explained that for an ordinary person, the stage known as 5 energies converging to the origin was equivalent to the 5 elemental spiritual root that natural cultivators were born with. He explained to Seo that in order to acquire the trait that cultivators are naturally born with, mortals like them must dedicate their entire lives to simply awaken that basic foundation. As he spoke, Director Kim swung his blade and tore open the fabric of space itself, forming a glowing door in midair. While stepping through that portal, he turned to Seo and said that he must now aim for greater heights. Before disappearing, he handed Seo a book, saying, "This is my final gift to you." He told Seo to stay well, and vanished before Seo could utter a word. Seo looked at the book's title, Record of Transcending Cultivation and Exhausting Martial Arts. It was a manual, a record of one man's attempt to reach beyond cultivation through martial prowess. Worried, Seo gazed up into the sky and softly asked, "Where are you going, Director Kim, without me?" But no answer came, and the days continued on. 50 years had now passed since Seo arrived in this world, and once again, he was on his deathbed from a common cold. Such was fate. No matter how fiercely humans fight, they cannot defy destiny. In the end, nothing really changed except the bed and house in which he lay. He passed away on the exact same day as in his former life. This time, he had lived without holding back, hoping to avoid the same regrets from before. He was so absorbed in his duties that he had never even considered marriage. Still, thanks to that drive, he had united all of Yengua's martial sects and experienced worldly fame and riches. But even so, a hollow emptiness remained in his heart. He wondered, if we had pushed even harder, could Director Kim and I have broken through to the sky itself? Seo's frail body trembled beneath the weight of such regret. It was too painful to accept. And so, the curtain fell on Sio's second life. What happens next? Stay tuned, the next part is coming soon.